oh my, do we got a shootout at the OK Corral? High noon on Saturday. So, this game is going to be the be-all, end-all, loser leaves home, loser leaves town, national championship hopes dashed for both of them. But Dylan, Michigan would only have one loss. Yes, exactly. And there is something that ties to it. And yes, it is the one thing that everybody is getting so damn annoyed about. So we still have to talk about that. So, the battle at the OK Corral of Happy Valley. It is a loser leaves town. Loser leaves town, goes home, never to be seen from again this year. It is the uncomfortable truth. Penn State, it would put them at 2 losses. Nobody good enough on their schedule to propel them up. Michigan, on the other hand, yes, it is the whole big scandal that everybody's getting annoyed about because it is not an actual scandal. And every team is doing this. And if they're not, then they should be fired for not trying hard enough. This whole, before I get into the whole Michigan cheating thing, I want to talk about the ramifications of this game, should Penn State lose. So, should Penn State lose, it will put James Franklin in a very, very tough spot in defending why he should continue to be the head football coach of the Penn State Nittany Lions. You have one win against Ohio State. You have multiple bad losses against Michigan. And in this year's case, you have a bunch of returning starters on that defense. You have what I think is one of the best quarterback prospects since Andrew Luck and Drew Aller. And you couldn't get it done against Ohio State. The weakest Ohio State team I have ever seen in my entire life. And then you lose at home against Michigan. And still having the quarterback advantage. I'm trying to find a justification for you to have that job because I'm not finding it. And that is a problem. That is a serious problem. And I like James Franklin. He's a fun coach. But the fact of the matter is you have to get it done. And he's just not getting it done. At Penn State, you are expected to compete for the national championship, if not win it. And you are expected to win the Big Ten. You are at a very, very least, get a win over Ohio State and a win over Michigan. Preferably, get it done in the same year once every 4 years, but at least regularly get a win over Ohio State, get a win over Michigan, if not offsetting. At least be competitive within the Big Ten. But over the last couple of years, you have seen a clear drop-off between Penn State and then Ohio State, Michigan. A clear drop-off of Penn State. Michigan has been completely resurrected. They died, came back, and is now in national championship contention, all while James Franklin is puttering around. And this is it for James Franklin. If James Franklin loses this game, he should be fired. It has come down to this. Now, we're going to have that discussion with Ryan Day here in a few weeks and against Michigan. So, Michigan could actually get Penn State and Ohio State's coach fired in the same year. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there with Ryan Day. So, with Michigan, a loss could be dire for their national championship hopes because the College Football Committee, they hold grudges. And I do believe that they have a grudge against Michigan from last year getting embarrassed, losing to TCU, and ruining what would have been a great national championship game. And you also have this whole cheating scandal that I think is engulfing that. Well, it is engulfing the news, and the committee is not going to feel comfortable putting Michigan in there with all of this looming. And if they got an opportunity to get Michigan out of there, they're going to do it. And if a loss to Penn State would give Michigan the opportunity to get them out of there, regardless whether Michigan beats Ohio State and wins the Big Ten championship by a combined 175 points. If they got an opportunity to leave Michigan out, they're going to take it. And that's what's going to happen should Michigan lose. Now, the committee, it does hold grudges. You look back at Ohio State. The committee let Ohio State into the playoff despite not being in the Big Ten championship game. Penn State winning the Big Ten. They still got in over Penn State. And then Ohio State got boat raced by Clemson 31-0. The very next year, as many remember, Ohio State won the Big Ten. Alabama didn't even go to the SEC championship game, but got in over Ohio State. And it could be I'm not going to say it's going to be a similar situation to that, but the logic still applies. And we could definitely see that. More in line would be Clemson, I believe it was last year. They had Clemson in the top 10. I think they got all the way up to 6, maybe even 4. But we knew Clemson wasn't that good. And the committee held that against Clemson, even though Clemson was still undefeated. But they finally got upsetted, and Clemson just fell right out of the top 10, never to be seen or heard from again. And I believe that's what's going to happen with Michigan as well. And all of this is going to be without due process, without actually knowing the whole spectrum of what's going on. And political pundits, Jesus, we're getting to that point with sports now. My God. Sports analysts, sports writers, Stephen A. Smith, ESPN's big honcho, ESPN's favored son, doesn't believe in due process at this point. Here is Stephen A. Smith.
The Michigan Wolverines should be banned from the college football playoffs until the investigation is complete. You do not
have the
get
investigation,
to the
then
college
punish.
football playoff and rob potentially another institution from getting one of those Final Four spots. If it is open, the possibility is open that you may have cheated to get your way there. The fact that the investigation is still open is nonsensical to me. It makes no sense. Expedite the process, reach a conclusion. Tell me they didn't do it. I'm fine with it. Tell me there's not enough evidence to validate they did it. I'm fine. But as long as the investigation is open, Shannon, there is no way on earth that you could have the Michigan Wolverines go into the college football playoff when it is possible that they may have had somebody working for them, traveling around to other schools, stealing signs, giving them an unfair advantage.
Okay, stop that, Jesus. Stephen A. Smith knows better than that. Michigan didn't just start magically winning because they were stealing signs. First off, every school does it. If they're not, then the coach should be fired for not working hard enough. Second, to suggest that because they started winning because they were stealing signs is absolutely disrespectful to everybody at Michigan. From Jim Harbaugh realizing he doesn't have the right staff in place and pulling the trigger on that, to every single player that has put their blood, sweat, and tears into that program to make it what it is now. It is disrespectful, out of line, and abhorrent. And to suggest that Michigan should be banned from the playoffs because allegedly, and he even says at the end, allegedly, stole signs. So we can't even confirm that it all happened. And an investigation is not 60 minutes done on CBS. This takes time to figure out. And I get the instant gratification. You want to hear it, you want it now. I get that. I want things, I want them now. But I want it done right. And if Michigan did break an NCAA violation, which nothing alleged actually breaks the NCAA rules. Nothing alleged actually breaks the rules. And yet, there is such a rush to judgment, and Stephen A. Smith, being on TV for 20 years, he knows better than that. But if there was an NCAA violation committed against Michigan, then yes, punish them accordingly. But we haven't even finished the investigation, and the investigation takes time to build. It takes time to get all the information, and now with this latest thing that's been thrown into it, it's going to take even longer to sort all of this out. And also, kudos to Michigan for fighting this tooth and nail, as they should, because the NCAA, the Big Ten, is getting pressured by the other schools to suspend Harbaugh during this coming down the stretch. And I have no faith in the NCAA actually acting properly and accordingly on this, because they never have and they never will. I wouldn't be surprised if I get the alert on my phone Saturday morning, the Jim Harbaugh suspended, will not coach today. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened, because I have no faith in the ethics of the NCAA and to actually carry this out properly. This is absolutely insane that this is even being talked about, discussed on national TV. Because in an investigation, especially one as complex as this is reportedly, it's going to take time. And to go and suspend somebody willy-nilly for allegations is absolutely insane. Let's figure out what happened and punish accordingly. And from what I have seen in all the reports, nothing that the Michigan has done, nothing that Connor Stallions has done, is allegedly against the rules. Now, the whole situation with Central Michigan, yeah, we got questions that they should have been answered already. Why have they not? Who knows? But nonetheless, if Michigan did something to break the rules, then they should be punished accordingly. That is my soapbox this time. It's absolutely insane. And if you looked at Michigan from 2017, 18, 19, and 20 to 21, 22, and this year, it's 23, yeah. From 21 on, you would see two completely and totally different teams. Michigan has completely modernized. They have cleaned house on offense. They've cleaned house on defense. They have gotten their ducks in a row and is starting to do what they should have been doing since Harbaugh got there. And they have completely revamped and changed everything. They have gotten better everywhere because they have changed the coaches. They got the better defensive coaching. Don Brown, and he's got a weird obsession with Engage 8. Man up and blitz. He's got a weird love obsession with that. You replace him with Mac McDonald, who is now with Baltimore. And now you have, I believe, his name escapes me. Got a new defensive coordinator in there who's pretty much taking the reins in the same boat. And then on offense, you got a more modernized offense, a lot less fullback, tight end, pound the rock. although they did do a lot of that last year. But you have a more modernized offense and a modernized way of doing things. And that is what is essentially happened at Michigan. But yet it's easier to go with the whole, oh, they're filming stealing signs, that's how they're winning. They were already getting 9 to 10 wins a year. Oh, and what got them over that hump was that little bit of a modernization, a little bit more complex on defense, a little bit more complex on offense. That's what got them over the hump. On top of that, you have Ryan Day getting worse and worse with rosters with Ohio State because he's not developing players like he should be. And that's what we are seeing at Ohio. We are seeing at the same time Ohio State falling and Michigan rising. And it looks like this rapid growth, and yet it's just simple tweaks here, simple malfeasance here. And it looks like Michigan just took this slingshot to the top, and yet in all reality, Michigan got a little bit better each and every year the last 3 years. Ohio State's gotten a little bit worse the last 3 years. And Michigan State has completely fallen off the face of the earth. But that's essentially all that's happened. Michigan modernized. And yet, they don't want to talk about that because that's not as interesting as a potential scandal that isn't even a thing. It shouldn't be a thing. So, kudos to entertainment over truth. Now, God, this feels like a political show. But anyway. And now, there is a thing that's come out in the last 24 hours that Maryland and Michigan may have been helping Purdue beat Michigan in the Big Ten championship game. Obviously, it was in vain. But allegedly, Ohio State and Rutgers had stolen the signs from Michigan in their games and handed them off to Purdue. Now, this is a bit more concerning than anything Michigan's doing, because you have established institutions, established programs, working together to take down a common enemy. And I've been told that this happens, but this is a little weird. This is a little bit weird. I'm not comfortable with this potentially happening. I don't like this. This is very concerning because, like I said, you have established institutions, Ohio State, Rutgers, who are supposed to be conference foes, working together with Purdue, who is another conference foe. This looks like collusion. It looks like collusion, corruption, and yeah, it might happen in the SEC, and this might be more of just the ugly guts of college football. But if this is true, then I truly believe that something ought to be done, because to have established institutions teaming up on one, I don't like it. I really don't. This feels weird. It's one thing if it's all like just a Connor Stalions going off on his own, which may or may not have happened. If you have, I'm trying to separate this without trying to sound like a hypocrite, but I hope you understand me properly here. I don't like the idea of established institutions gaining up on one. And I'm sure this has happened to Ohio State and USC with the Pac-12 and now probably Oregon, Washington, and Nick Saban in Alabama. I'm sure it's probably happened. I don't like the idea that it is, though. When you go off and steal the signs, and that's one thing. When you have the established institutions doing it, and colluding together to do it, that looks even ickier than what Connor Stalions in Michigan's doing. Looks a lot worse. So that's my thing there. It looks ucky. It looks ucky. It feels ucky. I don't want any part of that. But anyway, moving on from that whole deal. Now, the College Football Playoff Committee meets every week to bring out their top 10, and they have to make a splash because ESPN pays them to make a big splash. And make a splash they did, as we saw last week. And this week, they have Ohio State number 1. Why? Definitely not from the eye test. I mean, don't get me wrong. Ohio State's defense, phenomenal. Like 09, 10, 11, Bama level dominant defense Ohio State has. It is absolutely incredible. One of the best defenses I've ever seen. And one big problem. Kyle McCord is not good. He is a JV level quarterback playing for Ohio State. And if that is the best that Ohio State has to offer at quarterback, being in a recruiting hotbed, Ryan Day has got some explaining to do. Because that's unacceptable to be having him. And to think Ohio State picked Kyle McCord over J.J. McCarthy, that is absolutely insane. But anyway, nonetheless, so Ohio State with the best resume, okay, fine, whatever. Then we go to the eye test of Georgia, Michigan. And they got the eye test wrong. Because Michigan's looked like the better team than what Georgia's looked. So, we're 0 for 3 there. Florida State, okay, I can see them at 4. They got a pretty decent resume. But not as good as Washington's with a win over Oregon. But, And then you got Oregon, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, Penn State. Okay, fine, whatever. So, you got a completely messed up top 10 with really no actual decent explanation of why the inconsistency. But here on the Dylan Hoge Show, I got my top 10, and I will explain each and every one. So let's explain it, shall we? Here's mine. Georgia, number 1. They are back-to-back national champions. They should be number 1 until they are knocked off. Michigan, they have looked like the best team in the country. And they would be number 1, but the Georgia rule still applies. They are number 2 until Georgia knocks them off, or until Michigan gets the opportunity to knock them off. No, they're still going to knock them off, but you know what I mean. Number 3, I have Washington. Washington, I think they have the best win in the country right now with the win against Oregon. And I think we'll get to Oregon when I get to Oregon. Number 4, Florida State. Solid wins over LSU and Clemson. They are a legit national championship contender, and if they win out, they will be in the college football playoff, obviously. Number 5, I have Ohio State. As I mentioned in the college football portion of it, when I going through the playoff committee rankings, I don't trust Ohio State's offense at all. I don't trust Kyle McCord. Ryan Day is deteriorating. But that defense, it is good. They played tremendous against Drew Aller and Penn State, which I thought which was a big test that they passed. Don't get me wrong. But Kyle McCord is a huge question mark and a very big point of unfeelingness. I don't feel great about Kyle McCord going to Ann Arbor and getting a win. And he's looked, and with the receivers he has, with Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Ibuka, Cade Stover, he should be a lot better than what he's been playing. And you have a tremendous quartet of running backs at this point, led by Trayvon Harrison and Mayan Williams. And he still looks terrible. I have questions about Ohio State, and they are going to meet their maker in late November. So number 6, I got Oregon. Oregon, I think they are the best one-loss team in the country. I almost put them over Ohio State because I think Oregon in reality is the best team in the Pac-12, and I think Oregon-Washington on a neutral field, Oregon wins that game 6 to 7 out of 10 times. That's not a knock on Washington. Washington is phenomenal. They are a top 4 team in the country as well. But someone's going to have to lose. I think Oregon's going to get their revenge in the Pac-12 title game. Number 7. I have... 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. 7, I got Texas. Jeez. I'm keeping it in. But anyway, 7, I got Oregon. Good Lord, I need to learn how to talk. 7, I got Texas. I don't like Texas and where they're going. But I have to respect the head-to-head, so I have Texas over Alabama. I think Alabama's the better team right now. I think now, if Alabama and Texas played, Alabama would win. But the reality is, Texas got the win, and that should be a win over Alabama, and that should be honored, and that is. And Alabama, I think they're the one team that can knock off Georgia. I really do. They scare me. They have the mental edge. A little bit of PTSD, maybe. But nonetheless, they scare me more than anybody else on this board. Ole Miss, it's been a fun run. It's coming to an end Saturday night. And then Penn State, it's been a fun run. Coming to an end Saturday afternoon. And that is my top 10. My college football top 10. Comparing it damn near side by side to the college football committee. And my explanations on why I got who where. Granted, 9 and 10 weren't great explanations, but they've had fun. They've had a good run. They've had good runs, and they'll probably be 10-win teams. Now, obviously, this thing was centered around Michigan, Penn State. Now, I want to get to the portion of the show where I do make my weekend predictions. The fun weekend predictions. And I'll just kind of go with the bottom line here. Alabama, Kentucky. I think Alabama wins, but it's going to be very, very close. It's in Lexington. And Kentucky got embarrassed against Georgia. I don't think that's going to happen again. Next was the Miami against Florida. Or Miami against Florida State. Excuse me. I think Miami's going to make this one close. They're going to get the Seminoles very uncomfortable. I think Florida State ends up winning in the end because I think they're a bit more. I think they're a bit deeper. They're a bit more established. But Miami, give them a few years, they'll get there. And I already lost my spot, so I'm just kind of going to go off of what I know is on there. I know Florida State, or Florida LSU is on there. Oh, here we go. So Michigan, Penn State at noon. I obviously picked Michigan. Close one. I got Alabama in a close one against Kentucky. Miami and Florida State. I'm taking the Seminoles. And then, what was it? Utah at Washington. I think Washington wins this. I think it's going to be a little bit closer. I don't think Utah gets embarrassed a second straight week. Tennessee at Missouri. I'm going to take the Tigers here in a close one. Could be a battle for the ages. Georgia, close one, single digits. Texas, TCU. There's your upset of the weekend. And then Florida, LSU. If it was in the swamp, I would have really liked LSU. Or I would have really liked Florida. I don't like Florida on the road. Give me the Tigers. And then the nightcap. We actually got a 10:30 game worth watching. And it's give me Oregon over USC. I think it's going to be worth watching for a half. And then I think Oregon pulls away. Lincoln Riley is overrated as a head football coach. He will never win a national championship. I have said this on my TikTok account. I am going to say it here. Lincoln Riley will never win a national championship as a head football coach. The path to a national championship is only going to get tougher going to the Big Ten. Now, granted, the playoffs are expanding to 12, stupidly, and it's eventually going to get spread to 16. So getting to the dance will be one thing, will be an easy thing for them. But winning the dance is going to be a whole different ballgame, and something that I do not foresee Lincoln Riley ever accomplishing as a head football coach, not just at USC, but anywhere. His philosophy needs to change, and it needs to change drastically. And until he does, USC and Lincoln Riley will never win a national championship together. So that is my picks, my thoughts. Now, I do want to touch a little bit on LSU and Alabama this past weekend. I tried to stream it, had a little bit of technical issues, but nonetheless had a little bit of fun on TikTok. But LSU Alabama, I think that game you could have grounds for getting Brian Kelly removed as head football coach. Fire everybody. Yeah. To never put a spy on Jalen Milroe after he has ran 3 touchdowns on you. And you had this brilliant idea after the game. Oh, yeah, we should have put a spy on him. What do you mean you should have? I could have told you that at high noon last weekend. And yet, you waited till after the game to think about it. That is absolute malpractice, malfeasance, everything. How in the world do you go 4 quarters and, we should probably contain him. Finally, find a way to contain that guy. Especially when you have maybe one of the best defensive players in the country in Harold Perkins, who can keep up with Jalen Milroe. Instead, you got him trying to keep up with a wide receiver and failing to do so. The secret of coaching is putting your guys in a position to win. And Brian Kelly put his players in a position to lose. And that's what happened. And now the hit on Jaden Daniels, I think it was old-time football. I'm not going to call it dirty. I'm not going to do it because it looked ugly, but I don't think it was dirty. And then, what else did I want to touch on while I'm here? That is pretty much it. So, I will be getting into streaming. I'm going to be streaming some past games throughout the week. The rest of this week, I'm going to try to... I'm recording this Wednesday, so... I might be streaming Thursday nights an old college football game. I'm definitely going to be streaming Wednesday night an old college football game. And then Friday, maybe. Who knows? We'll see what happens. So the links are over that way. Twitch, the Dylan Hildreth, the Dylan Hildreth Show on YouTube. Kick.com/Dylan Hildreth on Kick. We will see you next time. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow on Rumble. And then go over to Kick and Twitch. Make sure to hit the follow buttons there. And if you're listening on podcast, make sure to download and give a 5-star review. I'd greatly appreciate it. We'll see you next time on the Dylan Hildreth Show.